Kalispera Anthropos, welcome to OIKONOMIKA, all about economics and finance, and I'm back again with a very special episode, very special edition of the trying to explain UK inflation data, and I have a very special thing to show you. And it's just the ingenuity of the genius of the human brain. When you got a bit of knowledge, you know where to go and what you have to do, where you pick it up and drop it off. And most of all, I have very what do I have? I'm very anxious because this thing it has blown my mind, and it's really wonderful that I managed finally to understand what's going on with inflation, and the quality of the data that I put together, and the clear picture that I have now, and I know exactly what is the cyclicality of the inflationary trend in the UK, and I know exactly how it works, which is wonderful. So first of all, after I did my quick update this morning about the estimates of the ONS data, I continued my work during the day to work with a few time series of CPIH on the most known thing. So you can actually dig deeper into the data and start to find from all angles all sorts of information that you need to have. So another cool thing that I like to measure, to implement when I'm doing time series analysis, even if it's for macroeconomic data, especially when it concerns inflation, I want to know what is the conditional volatility of inflation, because prices are volatile. Okay, so prices change a lot, and especially this concept, it's well accepted because there is dynamic pricing. I don't know if you are booking tickets for your I don't know, football, or you go into the theater or the concert, there is this dynamic pricing, or even your Uber taxi, there is a dynamic pricing, so how many requests there are at any minute for the next taxi pickup, your Uber cab or whatever, then the tariff of your journey can vary up or down. There is inflation volatility, like say similar as the stock market. So that's why I'm really persuaded of the statistical concept that the conditional volatility, the econometric concept of conditional volatility, must be applied to inflation in order to understand, for example, how long is persistent any inflationary shock, depending on what we are observing. We are taking into account CPI, we are taking into account CPIH, so including the housing cost, we are taking into account retail price index, we are considering core inflation, so we are excluding food and energy, we are excluding fat, which is food, alcohol and tobacco and energy. So we are just, we are checking what the producer price index is doing. There are so many measures of inflation. You can track the price of bread from 1900 to up to now. You can collect the prices of a single item, eggs, bread. That's how then the whole basket of inflation comes together. So the conditional volatility, it's a very important parameter to have. And because then we know with this the chart that I'm showing you now here, we know exactly, for example, for how long a volatility shock has a certain persistency, whether it's a food retail price index, or it's CPIH, or it's CPI, and in this case I have only what I put together, seven time series. Okay, so I've gone way beyond the forecasting part of doing the autoregressive integrated moving average models optimized for seasonality and with the 6 months forecast, and I went to see the conditional volatility, as I said, and here we see, for example, that CPIH, I hope you can read it, it's not all, okay, let's make it a bit larger a little bit. Okay, so CPIH, it has a beta parameter of 0.97 and half-life of 33.8 periods, and the volatility regime is very persistent. What that means, it means that CPIH, whenever there is an inflationary shock in CPIH, the 33.8 periods, they equate to plus 3 years. So that's why I said the method, this additional small detail that I have within the Garch models, I can understand exactly how long this goddamn volatility shock in inflation persists. So CPIH, according to the data that I have from ONS, 1989 up to now, because we can go back to 1970, you need to have the data. So for what that's what I can work with. CPIH volatility shock is persistent for plus 3 years, and RPI, the retail price index for food, it has a half-life of 62.3 periods, which then means that food inflation, it has, whenever there is an inflationary shock in the food supply chain, for example, the persistency of food inflation, 62.3 periods, it means there is a persistency of plus 5 years within the inflation dynamics. What that means, that is almost quasi-permanent, okay? Because you can have an inflationary shock and then prices can adjust. You have a small deflation, or it's very difficult. You can have adjustments in prices when there is more supply, or if a shock is temporary, probably a temporary energy shock, like we saw with gas and utility prices, and then the prices went up a lot and then it went down. Those are temporary shocks. But in the case of food shocks in food prices, at least for what concerns the data of the British economy, but I'm sure that it's almost the same for any other large economy. It depends for any other country, but here in this case we have a plus 5 years persistency of the inflationary, of the volatility shock in retail price index food items. So that explains exactly what we're seeing now. We are in 2025, and we see that since after 2020, when then basically you have supply chain constraints, okay, so you have scarcity of goods, there is no production, everything is shutting down, then you have a gradual opening, and then you have a surge of demand, and then supply needs to catch up, and then you start to have this long wave of inflation, which starts slowly, builds up, and then you have a huge steepening of food prices cost because of 2022 geopolitical risk. And it's 5 years now, and food prices in the UK, they are stubborn, they are high, they keep going high, they keep rising. And I can see that, I'm sure, from a mathematical point of view, with the parameter, it tells me, okay, the half-life, what is the 62.3 periods, it equates to plus 5 years of persistency of a volatility shock in prices, in food prices. And it matches exactly what are the real conditions in the economy. But the economy is not something abstract. When I see a number, a data, a parameter, it's not something that it's isolated. That parameter comes out from what happens into the real world. So what people do. So you go into the off license and you buy a packet of fags and a bottle of I don't know, whiskey, or you go to Tesco or Sainsbury's, or you go to the concert, you go to watch West Ham or Chelsea, everything that goes on into the economy is made by people. It's the interaction of people they are involved in whatever, it's work, leisure, consumption. So the study of economics, can be also associated with the social science, but the beauty is that I have mathematical formulas, I have calculus that makes economics or the economy a science. Okay, politics, it's not a science. It's ideology, it's ideas, it's something that it's totally abstract. It's propaganda, it's rubbish. It's something that it does not relate to what people do. That's why there is this growing feeling and trend that the ordinary people or voters, they feel disenfranchised with politicians because they make false promises, because they are all based on words. It's all empty words. It's just promising this, that, and the other without not even checking the facts, but not having the basic knowledge. Okay, and thank God, economics is a science, because there are mathematical models that describe what they don't describe what happens in the real world, but the mathematical models, to have the inputs, the x, the y, and the z, they need to collect the data from what people do. Okay, inflation is the collection of prices of all the stores across any country. So it's actually real life of real people, what they do. Okay, so it's important for me to say this. So because it's very simple. Oh, this is an academic argument. No, not at all. Not at all. So economics is something that it's rooted in. It's hard science, and it's rooted in the real life of people. Because to have the data, there must be a whole economy, a whole society that moves on, and that stuff. Take the tube, take the bus. Those are all data that feeds into the statistical database, and then I can go into the I don't know, the Eurostat or the American statistical database or the ONS, take the data and see what happens. But it's not something that it's cold and distant. It's actually very real. And then the difficult part is that there are all sorts of calculus and econometrics models, all sorts of academic nuances and knowledge that needs to be applied to understand. But the beauty that I got today is that I know that I have a volatility shock of 62.3 for food RPI. You say, oh, that sounds a little bit crazy. No, it's not, because it tells me with precision that a volatility shock in food prices in Britain, on average, it lasts 5+ years, and that data reflects exactly what do I see in the real world and what real people live through, because there are millions of people who go to the food bank. So how long is gonna last this food inflation? And that's why it's now I know that it takes 5 years, even longer. So it means that food inflation, not only it's persistent, but the amplitude of the volatility shock, it makes it almost permanent. So that means that if your biscuit packets, it was £1, and it goes up to £1.25, there is a 25% markup on your biscuits, your ordinary staple. But that price is not gonna go back to £1. So it's permanent. So once food prices go up, they stay there. And any ordinary person in Britain, I'm really sure that they see it every day when they go shopping. In Tesco's, or okay, I was checking if the recording was going on. Yes, as I was saying, any ordinary person who lives in Britain and they go to say Tesco, Sainsbury's, or Marks and Spencer, or wait, then you see that prices just keep going up. You go into the supermarket, you buy a couple of things, and you drop £100, and you come out with very little value, very few items. And so the people, the middle class, they feel the pinch, they feel the squeeze of the cost of buying groceries or providing for their daily food, which is necessary. And that's why there is a reason for all the data that we collect for all past years of inflation. We know that a food price shock in Britain, it lasts 5 years or plus 5 years. So with this I have more good news. Okay, you say, oh my God, 5 years. You see, it's something like you still have long to go. I don't know. I wish it all vanishes now with we call it Harry Potter, and then I don't know, we use the magic wand and that's it. No, but I have good news, because the ingenuity of the genius of the human brain, it made me think hard, and I had to do something. I had to understand. So now I'll share with you something that I would not like to share with you, because these are not unknown things, but it's something that I keep for me and I don't. So In simple terms, what did I do? What did I do? In simple terms, what is the method? Basically, very basically, which is not basically, using again working with the same inflation data that you get from Sky News and CPI and what is the RPI, what is core inflation. It's stuck at 3.8%. I take the same data because I take it from the ONS. I get it from the ONS. But what do? I discretely transform the data that I have in a periodic function, in sine and cosine functions. Okay, the method is well known, and it's called Fourier transform. It's a branch of calculus which is called Fourier calculus that we owe to a beautiful, incredible, genius French mathematician, Fourier, which basically came up with this method of taking any impossible equation, even if it's a stochastic differential equation with a time variable, and you can transform it in a periodic function which is made of sine and cosine. Sine and cosine, we know that are periodic function. They are periodic of 2 pi, of 360 degrees, okay, or pi, 2 pi, yeah, they are periodic of 2 pi. And we know that cosine goes from 0 to 1, from 1 to 0 to 1 half, or sine goes from 1 to 0, and we know what are the sine and cosine functions. Okay, I may have made any mistake, but it depends from which angle you start. But basically, we take inflation and we transform it into a cyclical signal. Okay, and then with that I can understand how long is the cyclicality, how long is the period, what is the amplitude of the cyclicality of the inflationary inputs into the economy, the inflation cycles into the economy, and whether if we are at a peak, a trough, or we are at at a turning point, the curvature. With the machine, I can see the parameters for the first and the second derivatives. Very interesting things. And here we have the summary statistics across all measures, and we see here CPIH, the dominant harmonic, because it's a periodic function, we have harmonics, okay, and the dominant period is 220 months, which is 18.3 years. We have the max amplitude of the function, and variance explained, total variance explained. But what is important for very simple terms is that, for example, inflation CPI and CPIH, they have a dominant period, so the cyclicality of inflation is very long. It's 18 years. It's 18 years and 3 months. CPI services is 36 years. Services and CPIH core inflation is 37 years. Why? That reflects exactly the technology trend. Whereas services or core inflation, excluding food and energy, which are more volatile items, they reflect basically the generational trend in core services inflation, and so they reflect also what are the technological changes across the economy, into the economy. That's why they have longer generational trends. Okay, instead a retail price index of food, or CPIH, which includes energy, food, alcohol, and tobacco, they have their dominant period is 5 years, 5.2 years, or 4.6 years. It means they have a shorter period. In fact, the max amplitude parameter is 0.19 or 0.29, which is much smaller than at 0.76, the max amplitude of the curve, because the cyclicality of the period, it's much shorter. A 5-year period for food prices, it reflects, I don't know, the seasonality or the agricultural industry evolution or a period of production, so forth and so on. So those data also reflect what actually is the cyclicality of inflationary trends, because we are here talking about long trends, long trends that span for more than a decade. And so I will show you in a bit that I have good news, because the long inflationary trends, it seems to be peaking mostly in 2026, and in the back half of 2026. And so I don't know, because I don't have a crystal ball, I don't know exactly what will be the outcome in the real world, but for sure I know that potentially with some empirical data, the cyclicality will be in a downward slope for what concerns the long period of cyclicality of of inflation. And let's see if we can. Okay, I have already forecast here, but okay, we see it together. It's not a problem. It's not a special ingredient, or I want to take something that it's simple. It's not very complicated. Bear with me 1 second. I need to read here. Okay, these are all the forecasts. Okay. I just was missing a little bit. So we have cyclicality in everything. Okay, we have cyclicality in everything. The cyclicality of natural products, the cyclicality of natures, the clock, the Big Bang, the clock is a circle. Okay, so how the circle goes round and round and round, we use exactly the geometrical concept of the circle. We have a radius, and so we use sine and cosine from the radius of the Big Bang of the clock, which are the lancets that indicate the minutes and the hours, and then we use the angle. So we have the phase angle, we have the amplitude of the cyclical trends, and the Fourier components that we are able to extrapolate from simple inflation data, which are percentages. Okay, so we transform the percentages of inflation into cyclical components, into periodic function. Exactly, we take the concept of the because we are dealing with deficit black holes, we take the concept of the Big Bang, the clock, okay, the time, okay, and so because it's a circle, we have a radius, we have the phase angle, and so we are able to reconstruct we see here full time series reconstruction, and we have a sort of a wave, okay, periodic function, and the dashed line is the dominant cycle for CPI, and we know that the dominant cycle it's 18 years, okay, and here we have H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6, which are the 6 harmonics that we apply as an input into the Fourier transform, discrete Fourier transform. Okay, and here the H2, so here we have these big waves, which are very sinusoidal waves, okay, and are periodic. They go up, down, so we have a peak, a trough, and then we have another big up cycle, then we have a down cycle, and now we have a up cycle. So here we have 35 years. Can you see I'm just I'm on the right with the thing, with the pointer, and we are at the peak of the third wave, of the third cycle, or the third inflationary cycle. We are at the peak, and probably the curve is gonna basically, we are at maximum point at the peak, and then the curve is gonna turn, and we're gonna have a downward path, long-term cycle of inflation. So we should have a deflationary cyclical period for CPI or CPIH. Hopefully, these are my good news. You say, where do I see the good news? With all these charts, they are a nightmare. Okay, let's put something simpler. Here we have it. Okay, so we have, I took the data from my discrete Fourier transform, and I say, okay, I want a forecast. Now you see the forecast. We have basically the dot line, it's the latest data point that we have. Then we have a forecast, which is a out of sample forecast for which we don't have any data. Yeah, I cannot have the data of May 2027, right? So with computer coding, and with the computer coding, it's based on calculus, it's based on mathematics. It provides a forecast based on a Fourier transform, right? And so we see that we are at the peak of the cycle between 2024 and 2025 for what concerned CPI, and we are able to have a 5-year forecast. And we see that we are turning lower. And also, if you go and see my video shorts, when yesterday I did an update of what was going to be this morning ONS data of inflation, I said, okay, I have my ARIMA model and SARIMA models, which include also seasonality. They tell me that inflation, at least CPI, is doing some little baby steps down. It means that it's decreasing slowly. It's 3.8, then it will be 3.7, then it will be 3.6. So slowly, it's decreasing. So we are in a very slow, gentle, downward sloping, deflationary cyclicality period for CPI. So the good news is that probably the most of inflation and the persistency of the volatility shock that it's basically, it was disincatenated into the UK economy, it should be abating. Okay, we should have some deflationary impulse into the economy, and this deflationary trend, it could be somewhat cyclical, okay, for what is a 5-year period, okay, that we have here in this forecast. Okay, and we have the red shaded area is the margin of oscillatory, the marginal, the confidence interval as is there, or it's the marginal space that you have for how much it can vary up or down. Okay, so we have a channel, a confidence interval for what is the projected forecast. Okay, so that's very important. Here we have the detailed view. So between basically the end of 2025 and the start of 2026, we should be on the forecast downward sloping trend of inflation. So I hope that prices will start to, retail prices will start to go down slowly for the British people, but what do I have? It's data, it's mathematical models that can tell me, okay, probably we are on the right path, on the right trajectory, which can lead us to a deflationary cyclical period. Okay, because we are talking here about cyclicality, not structural features. Okay, because there are cyclicality, those are periods, you know, it's like the clock or the Big Bang. Once you have a period, then that period ends, and then you have another cycle. Then there are structural things, which is actually the actual Big Bang tower, that is the structure within which we have the clock that goes round and round and round and defines the periods of time. So the structural features that underpin the inflationary pressures, which are inbuilt into the economy in Britain, those will not change unless I don't know, the British people decide that they want to produce more stuff. They take some economic initiative, and they do something for themselves without waiting for the politicians. Yeah, then we have, those are the structural things that stay there because they are there, right? Unless you change a bit the structure of how the economy works, and that depends on people. It does not depend on politicians. At least that's my own humble not idea, it's my humble assumption. I work with this assumption. Okay, it's an axiomatic assumption that politicians, whoever they are, they can be the president of the Milky Way, of the galaxy, it's just words. Okay, you need ordinary people to say, okay, we roll our sleeves up and we start to do stuff that makes our life better. And so we produce more, we try every method to legal method, of course. We build factories, we expand the capacity of producing goods in our within our country. We plant manufacturers abroad. So we do things. Okay, that's the structural decision that any person can make. As well as what is my structural decision is, I want to do econometrics model. I want to study stuff, and I produce value research that explains things, and it helps me understand what is gonna be the future of certain of the economy or financial assets. That's an idea. So then there is the cyclical things, which are periodic, and those go with the clock. They go clockwise. They can't be counterclockwise because that will be, we invented the time machine. We can do that. I don't know, probably antimatter goes backward in time. I have no idea. Still has to be proven. Anyway, we see here inflation cycle forecast. I hope you can see it, 2025 down to 2040. We have these red dots here, okay, and we can see that the forecast shows a gentle long cyclical period of many years of I don't know if I can define it deflation, but the upward trend in terms of inflationary cyclical expansion, it should be done, right? So we will have a cyclical period, although it can be 5, 10, 15, 20 years, or it should be of downward path of inflation. So it should be not so inflationary, but less inflationary. I cannot define it with precise numbers because it's a forecast into the future and I don't have a crystal ball. But what I can see is that the cyclicality is turning lower. Okay, so probably there will not be inflationary shock that will basically push up prices a lot, but we will have a deflationary cyclical trend because of technology improvements, because we will have peace in the world, because we will start to adjust supply chains, so we will do a broader economic area, not only Europe, so we will adjust supply chains, there will be less red tape, less barriers at customs. I don't know, there can be many things which are not known at the moment. Okay, just okay, bear with me, no problem. And now we will see together the forecast, the work that I made, that I've been doing today, with the few time series that I put together. Okay, so CPIH, we have a peaking inflation cycle, and from 2026 we see we have this very nice gentle bell curve. We should starting to see deflationary CPI dynamics. Okay, I don't know how exactly. I hope that CPIH will start to converge at least to 2%, so that we'll have a normalization of interest rates. What is the economic or monetary policy field of action? And we have the detailed stuff that shows us in details how the slope is gonna turn downwards 2026, 27, 2028, and we will be probably at the trough of the cycle by 2030, 2032, 33. So these are very long-term projections, but nevertheless they are very useful because they can inform you and tell you exactly where is the business cycle into the economy. So it's not all like the Rolling Stones. That there is that wonderful song. It's all I hear is doom and gloom. Okay, that's wonderful. So it's not all doom and gloom, as some Rolling Stone music will cheer up everyone. And CPI has peaked already in 2024 a little bit, and it's slowly decreasing. Okay, and the curve, it's here, it's around between 2027 and 2028. So these are, as I said, not long term, medium term, 5-year span, 5-year horizon, yeah, the event horizon. And there is no black hole. What is a black hole? A black hole is a point, it's a dot, right? Okay, so a 22 billion black hole. I found the black hole that Rachel Reeves talks about, and I can tell you exactly that basically what happens that the government in 2023, they ended up the fiscal year with 22 billion in excess current expenditure over the current receipts of what is the fiscal the fiscal account, the primary account. So basically, even they did not balance the book. That's true. I have the Rachel Reeves. It's telling something that it's actually very, very true. Now I don't have time to go and load the Excel, but I will do this in a short video in a while. But anyway, there is no black hole in that sense, because black hole, it's a point, it's a singularity that diverges to infinity, where the mass density of the black hole or the point, it's infinite, and you have some so strong gravitational force that light does not escape the black hole. And we know that light goes at 300,000 kilometers per second square, or probably 2.999810 to the 8th power kilometers per second. So a fiscal deficit in mathematical terms definitely is not a black hole, because a black hole, it's a point. Okay, fiscal deficits are money, it's another thing. But anyway, my Fourier model tells me that CPI, and tells you that CPI, it's decreasing. It will be slowing. The pace of inflation will be cyclically decreasing. Okay, that's very good. It's very good news. RPI, it's very nice Gaussian bell curve. Okay, and hopefully RPI should be on a downward path, deflation, or less or smaller percentages of smaller inflation increases, not so much, smaller percentages of the inflation volatility. I don't know how I can define it, but the cyclicality tells me, okay, we are hopefully on a downward cyclical trend for inflation. And I have more good news, okay, because here I have the same but with old inflation measures. So we already see CPIH, which is very important, because CPIH, it's a very important measure. It's a highly precise predictor factor of inflation, and that's the quality of the data. It's very important, and it should be a reference also for monetary policy together with core inflation. But CPIH, it's a very high quality inflation index, and it's stationary. It does not have a lot of white noise, a lot of error, variance error and stuff like that. So it's actually very good. And here, okay, we are slowly, little tiny steps on the downward slope of the curve. We have climbed this huge mountain of inflation, and we are seeing the other side, and this is a long distance down. We have a beautiful valley of milk and honey. Okay, so the cyclicality of CPIH should start to prove some signs of some data of deflationary trend, a contraction in price expansion, in the price hiking. I hope so, because you never know what with the real world, you never know. There are so many variables. Same CPI, we are on a downward trend, and RPI, we are on a downward trend. and RPI food, although it's very sticky and stubborn, it shows me that we are already on a deflationary path, which is reasonable because food inflation was 12%, 14%. So we already passed the peak of 2022 shock, and we are going towards more reasonable. And yeah, you see the cycle position, those are different things. Okay, and that's here we have a different kind of thing. We see how we are able to see that we are near the trough, the bottom of a short-term cycle or cyclicality of CPIH index that includes also energy, food, alcohol, and tobacco. And so we are at the trough of this inflation index, and we will have another peak in October 2028. So you see what is the forecast. This is completely different. It's disenchained from, it's not linked to the other inflation measures. Here we have very detailed forecast. You see how exactly what should be doing. We are going to have a trough here that was in March 2025, and probably there will be a peak again in August 2027. So we have the exact timing of this short-term trough to peak cycle. And here, okay, we have in latest numbers forecast summary, which tells us that all these inflation measures that I worked with, they are in a stable trend. They are all in a stable downward cyclical trend, which slowly will bring down the headline inflation number. And only for CPIH that collects energy, food, alcohol, and tobacco, we are in a falling trend. So we are past the bottom of the trough of the curve, and this will be peaking again. We are in an upward cycle, peaking again into what was August 2027. Okay, so also we have here the very concise summary, which in few words and numbers tells us exactly what is the mathematical concept. And here again, we repeat again the same model because we want to be extra sure that everything aligns. Yeah. Here we see CPIH services has peaked or will peak in November 2025. And then we will start to have a deflationary trend, hopefully also for services, which is important because services inflation still is at 4-5%. It's very, very high, and it's very, very sticky. Also because it has a very long generational trend of long wave of 35, 37, 38 years. And so we are in the medium term, on a 5-year horizon, we are peaking around November 2025, and maybe services inflation will start to slowly, gently decrease a little bit. We'll be on the downward path on the other side of the mountain. Okay. So in 1 month ahead, okay, we have a very forecast of the turning point. Next peak value is the value of the amplitude. It's 0.58. Okay, we saw that food inflation, we have passed the peak of 12-14%, and the food inflation should continue going down or with small marginal price hikes. I hope that food prices will start to come down because it's very, very important for price stability and etc. etc. Okay, CPIH energy, we have another different thing. it tells me that we're gonna have the bottom of the cycle, the trough, in April 2026, and this small period is gonna peak again, reach its peak in October 2028. I hope you can all see on the screen that I'm sharing with you. So we are in between a trough, and we are going to go between trough and peak of the curve of the function. Okay, CPIH core, which is excluding food and energy. We are almost at the peak, so we are peaking, and from 2026 the inflationary cycle should be to an end, and we should have a deflationary cycle of some sort. Okay, very interesting, very interesting. Okay, so summary, 5-year forecast summary 2025-2030. It says here, okay, all the inflation baskets, they are on a downward trend. We have a level of confidence which goes from medium to high, etc. Core inflation, CPI core inflation, it's on a downward trend. We have a very high confidence parameter, 0.2, and so core inflation should continue on the downward. Should be less core inflation. We should have a prices coming down in the UK in a period of time. It can be 12, 24, 36 months. So I hope that's some sort of good news. And I've showed you something that is technically and mathematically, I don't want to say sophisticated, because Fourier analysis is Fourier calculus. It's bread and butter of engineers. So if you are an engineer, I hope you watch my video, and now you have a good, bad, or ugly or a wonderful idea of the cyclicality of inflation, so CPI inflation, and prices for all the UK economy. And with that, I can say it's been a pleasure, and you will see me very soon. I will upload a short showing the 22 billion and change shortfall in the fiscal thing. And yes, you're very welcome, and I hope you enjoyed and you find useful the content. If you can, just thumbs up, put a like, and subscribe to the channel, and see you soon.